People, Saturday night, and it is technically Saturday night going into Sunday morning, because apparently the ring walk for this fight is going to be around 1 a.m. there or thereabouts, which is not too bad, really. It's really not too bad. This is the main event for Ring Magazine 4. And just before we get started, actually, if you could just quickly have a look there on screen. Doing really well the last couple of days. Want to get to 30k as quick as we can. If you could, hit the like button. It would really help me out. People, the main event is Anthony Yarde versus David Benavidez. Now, I like this fight. I'm not going to lie. I do like this fight. I think it's an interesting matchup because Benavidez, obviously for Benavidez's WBC light heavyweight world title. Now, he got this title. I think he was elevated to full champion after Bivol vacated. Now, or did he? Yeah, no, he did. He beat Beterbiev for undisputed, and then he vacated. Benavidez got elevated to full champion because his fight with Morel, I believe, was for the interim title, if I'm not very much mistaken. Now, Benavidez at 175, he hasn't appeared to be, he's been very good at 175, but he hasn't been quite the destructive force we've seen of him at 168 pounds. He fought Vodcek, who previously had been retired for a couple of years. It's safe to say he was probably past his best when he fought Dave Benavidez. And then obviously he fought Dave Morel back in February. Morel himself coming up from light heavyweight, and he also really hasn't looked good at 175 pounds. So, him against Anthony Yarde. This is the first opponent he has faced who is a natural career 175 pounder, but who's also somewhat in his prime. And I'm going to use that word, somewhat in their prime. Let's just go over the tail of the tape very, very, very quickly. 30 fights for Dave Benavidez, 28 years old, 6'2" with a 74-inch reach, has a very good knockout percentage. Anthony Yarde has a similar knockout percentage, very, very good. 30 fights as well, only he has 3 defeats. One of them coming to Lyndon Arthur, which he avenged twice. The other 2 coming to world title fights against Artur Beterbiev and Sergey Kovalev. 6 foot tall, doesn't have his reach listed. I think Yarde has a decent reach. He's going to be the shorter guy slightly in there with David Benavidez. Now, right. Yarde Benavidez. It's a good fight. But, look, this is the first time Anthony Yarde... Now, Anthony Yarde, right, he's always acquitted himself very well at world level. It's fair to say. He's always done that. Every time he's got in there at world level, even though he's lost, he's always acquitted himself very well. But this does make you wonder if he'd have been brought along correctly. All right. Now, Fabio Wardley is a prime example. Now, I know Wardley is a heavyweight, Yarde is a light heavyweight. You do need a little bit more about you as a light heavyweight, you know, because they are more skilled than the heavyweights, it's fair to say. You could be someone like a Fabio Wardley who has fought guys who are technically better than him. Guys like Nathan Gorman, Fraser Clark, people like that, more accomplished amateurs. But he's found a way to win, and he's found a way to win very, very well. He's brought them into a dogfight. Again, as a heavyweight, you don't need as much skill. You have to take that into consideration. But Fabio Wardley is someone who, like Anthony Yarde, he had no amateur experience. Yarde had about 10 fights thereabouts at a low level. And when he turned pro in 2015, a decade ago, he was matched very carefully and was brought along extremely slowly. Now, for me personally, I don't necessarily mind that because you're talking about a guy who, again, had, next to no amateur fights at a low level. So I'm okay with that, bring him along very slowly. But around about 2017, 2018, you started seeing some worrying signs when originally Frank Buglioni was British champion and Team Yarde were happy to take that fight. But I believe, was it the board or something like that? But basically Jose Burton, who was very different, dimensions and stylistically to Frank Buglioni, was thrown into the equation. They were like, no, we want Frank Buglioni, stuff like that. So you're starting to think, I wonder if they knew. And looking back in hindsight, Lyndon Arthur is a lot better than Jose Burton, but you've seen what happens when you put Yarde at the end of a jab. He doesn't have a great deal to get round it. He's really ineffective on the front foot in that sense and really pressuring the opponent. He can do it, but he's not the most refined front foot pressure fighter, it has to be said. And once the whole Jose Burton thing kind of calmed down and then they went along beating they then fight a guy called Travis Rivas. That was in the Royal Albert Hall. Now, he wasn't the original opponent. The original opponent, I remember, was a guy who would actually, I think he'd gone the distance with Vodcek in a fight or two before. So, fringe world level, durable. Didn't happen. They fought that Travis Rivas guy and then went straight into a Sergey Kovalev fight. And this is what they've been doing ever since. It seems that they go up to world level, go straight back down to no level, and then Lyndon Arthur is chucked in there as well. And Lyndon Arthur has a win over Anthony Yarde. Now, that's not setting you up at all for world level. That's setting you up to fail. It's showing Anthony Yarde when he gets to world level that he has the ability to hang with these guys, but he doesn't have the experience. And crucially, he doesn't have the experience as a fighter, but he also doesn't have the experience in the corner, it seems. Because against Sergey Kovalev, that was really Tunde Ajayi, who was his trainer and manager's first outing, really in that world title fight, kind of world title picture. And Tunde was giving Anthony Yarde terrible advice in between rounds, especially when Yarde hurt Sergey Kovalev, saying to basically empty the gas. Well, that's what he did. Couldn't get rid of the guy, and he got taken out by a jab. The jabs that weren't bothering Anthony Yarde earlier on in the fight, by then he was knackered, and he was taken out. And you saw the inexperience of Yarde, but you also saw the inexperience of the corner. And Tunde has done very well to make Anthony Yarde as refined as he is with such a limited experience. But, there's the inexperience. Now you contrast that again and bringing him up again, Fabio Wardley. Fought guys like Eric Molina, who, very limited fighter. Not limited, but questionable heart, it's fair to say. And there was a few rough moments in that fight, but Wardley came through. You fought the likes of Nathan Gorman, fought the likes of Nick Webb and people like that. Domestic level opponents, fringe British level, got through them, and they bring them up slowly. David Alaye, Fraser Clark, bringing them up slowly, but they're bringing them up gradually. Essentially the traditional route, which is what Frank Warren normally does, although most of them fights use it matchroom. They're not doing that with Yarde. And crucially as well, Wardley, he's got an experienced coach in Ben Davison. Yarde didn't have that. So you see what I mean. Now, the team has barely changed since then. And I think that's problematic because I've noticed a significant amount of stagnation in Anthony Yarde. I don't want to say he's past his best or he's on the slide. He may very well be. He's 34 years old now. But I've noticed that he's not getting any better. He hasn't been getting any better for years now. And he's at that stage now where you can't teach an old dog new tricks. Contrast that to Dave Benavidez, who is, 6 years younger? 5-6 years younger than Anthony Yarde. He's been just getting better and better. And you saw in that Dave Morrell fight how cute he is up close. Morrell throwing shots up close. People associate Benavidez as just being this big brute, this guy who's going to come in, throw a load of punches, bludgeon you to the ground, reckless abandonment. But he's not really that. I mean, again, you go and look, although he was down in that fight, you go look at the Morrell fight when he's up close, those shots, he has his guard up, he's slipping the shots, he's moving with them. Missing, Dave Morrell was. So he's very cute, and he's one of those fighters where, I've always said Benavidez is a very, very good fighter, but he's deceptively good. He's much better than Anthony Yarde, in my opinion. And you contrast their most recent form. I mean, it's night and day. Again, Lyndon Arthur, who is a very, very good fighter, don't get me wrong, but Lyndon Arthur is the one name against a sea of who's he. 2 fights after he fought, literal fights, after he fought Benavidez or Beterbiev, a nobody, and then this Ralph Vilkans guy who people were saying, could he be better than we think? Not really. Only a couple of weeks ago he was knocked out in a round over in Canada by an unknown guy over there. So it's not exactly good luck that Yarde went life and death with him, never mind the scorecard. So whereas you contrast that, as I said, Benavidez, much, much, much better form. Morrell, Vodcek, Andre, Plant, Lemieux, Kyrone Davis, Ronald Ellis, Alexis Angulo, Durrell, much, 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 much better opponents, much better opposition. I think it's going to show night and day in this fight. I honestly can't see Anthony Yarde winning this fight. People have been saying, well, maybe Yarde has a puncher's chance. Well, that's assuming Yarde's as big a puncher as we think he is, because even against these guys, the Ralph Vilkans of the world, they've not been devastating knockouts or anything like that. He never came close to hurting Lyndon Arthur in their trilogy fight when he hurt him quite badly a couple of times in their second fight. I think Yarde has good power, but does he have, Beterbiev level punching power? Does he have, prime Sergey Kovalev level punching power? I don't think he does. And you want to talk about, Anthony Yarde, is he the slicker boxer? Well, Yarde he definitely fights in a kind of a Floyd Mayweather style. Early on in his career, the shoulder roll, trying to bob, weave, use your athleticism. But he's not exactly a defensive wizard. He can be hit. And when he's, on the end of a jab, when he's getting outboxed, when he's facing pressure. The one thing I would say is that if Benavidez pressures Yarde, he is kind of playing into Yarde's strengths. He does kind of like that. But even still, Yarde's been overwhelmed at times, like against Arda Beterbiev. Even when he had success against Beterbiev, it was, it was there, and then all of a sudden Beterbiev will turn it on and, oh, crap, now I'm on the back foot, now I'm getting hurt again. So I think that Dave Benavidez is the firm favourite going into this fight, and I think that it's a variety of things with Anthony Yarde as to why he won't win this fight. I think that right now his chance to win a world title is gone. I think that there was a time, and the light heavyweight division's always been, pretty tough. But I think when it was the likes of Joe Smith Jr. as champion, no disrespect to him, amongst some other guys, even maybe a Vodcek, there was maybe an opportunity to win something there. But Yarde lacked that experience, and he lacked that experience in the team around him. And I think now, although he looks in good shape, at the end of the day, I think now we're really going to see all the problems that have been in that team since probably 2018, 2019. I think the chickens are going to come home to roost in this fight. And I think Yarde is going to get an absolute shellacking in there. I think he's going to get beaten from pillar to post and probably stopped in the mid to late rounds. That's what I think is going to happen. I think they're going to look to set up a Joshua Buatsi fight, win or lose. And I think Yarde is most certainly definitely going to lose this fight. I can't see him winning this fight. And again, going into some of his past fights, he's normally been the younger, fresher guy. Well, he's not this time around. He's the older guy. He's seen as a vet almost. And Benavidez just been going from strength to strength. So I can't see Anthony Yarde winning this fight at all. I think he's going to get taken out. I think he's going to get it beaten. And I think Dave Benavidez is going to look good doing it. And I think maybe this will be the catalyst for Anthony Yarde changing things up, maybe finally splitting with Tunde from a trainer's point of view, maybe not as a manager's point of view, because as a manager, Tunde has done all right, he's got the Adidas deal and stuff like that. But I just feel as though he's run his course a long time ago with Tunde, and as I've said it before about Tunde Ajayi, if he's such a good trainer, how come there's not a queue of fighters lining up to train with him? Because literally, you never hear. He's based in Cannon Town in London, which is not hard to get to. And literally, there's no one looking to train with him. So what does that tell you? That tells you a lot. So, yeah, I think Yarde's going to get battered in this fight. Dave Benavidez for me to win this fight comfortably inside the distance, probably inside around about 10 rounds or so. And, yeah, we shall see what Anthony Yarde does on Saturday night. I don't imagine he's going to have much to offer in this fight personally. But I could be wrong. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I hope, as always, you enjoyed the video. If you could, smash the like button, hit subscribe, all of that good stuff. And until next time.